Foreign Affairs Minister John Baird, he's calling for an investigation into this same passenger plane crashing over Ukraine. He says, as we mourn the loss of the passengers and crew members aboard flight MH17, Canada joins Australia, Malaysia, the Netherlands, and other friends and allies around the world in insisting on a credible and international investigation into the shooting of Malaysia Airlines flight MH17, calling the incident a horrendous crime perpetrated against innocent civilians. Baird says pro-Russian forces need to leave the crash site immediately so that investigation can be carried out. He's also asking Russian President Vladimir Putin to stop the buildup of troops along the Ukrainian border, withdraw his troops from Crimea, and broker a ceasefire. Joining us now with more on this is Ed Turzanski. He's a fellow at the Foreign Policy Research Institute and scholar in residence at LaSalle University. Ed, who is really in control of the crash site? Why is this becoming a very sensitive issue?
Sarika, Vladimir Putin is in charge. He commands the people who are in a position to release that site for international monitoring. The reason they don't do it, it's a tremendous embarrassment to him. They certainly didn't mean to shoot down a civilian airline, or at least we'll give them that much goodwill. But they did mean to shoot down a Ukrainian plane. They've shot down other Ukrainian planes, and this situation has spiraled out of his control. He's got an embarrassment on his hands, and now he'd like to make this go away as quickly as possible. One of the ways you do that, remove as much evidence as you can.
But the world is going to question that at this time, and he knows that.
He most certainly does, and he is betting that we will not have the resolve to stick with the issue over time. The news cycle has a tendency to overcome people's attention spans. So he figures if he can push this further along down the line, remove evidence, and then start providing other explanations. Certainly, you and I won't accept it, most people won't accept it, but what will we do about it? And this is a question squarely on the heads of the Europeans. They've seen the brutalization of Ukraine. They know that Putin's been responsible, but they haven't held him accountable up until this point. We'll see whether this terrible attack on a civilian airliner changes people's attitudes and puts some spine into them so that they push back against them.
What can they practically do as a community worldwide?
The Russians are very dependent on banking outside of their country, but here's the devil in the details. The Germans do a great deal of business with the Russians. They realize that any sanctions against Russian firms are going to wind up hurting German workers. And up until this point, the Europeans have not wanted to push too hard because they also know that winter is coming. And when it does, the Russians just need to turn down the thermostat. Less oil and natural gas to Europe has a way of compelling European behavior so that they either look the other way or they actually accede to Putin's desires.
So who wins ultimately?
Well, certainly, I don't think anyone wins.
Well, if you look at it as a chess game.
I beg your pardon?
If you look at this as a chess game, if you're saying that Russia ultimately could turn down the thermos, then what happens?
Putin wins at least in the short run if he can keep any meaningful sanctions from hitting his economy. And we'll have to see. He's done a lot of terrible things in Ukraine, and so far he hasn't paid a price for it. Over time, Putin's country is in deep trouble. In terms of demographics and economics, the Russians are behind the 8 ball. But he's played a very brilliant hand in doing what he's done in Ukraine without paying a price. We'll have to see whether this attack and the killing of nearly 300 civilians changes people's minds.
Okay. Ed, thanks so much. Ed Turzanski.
Thank you, Sarika.
Joining us from Philadelphia.